What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best builds in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of each setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the leveling and mid-game. And then finally we will go over the passive skill tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what charm should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you're looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. This setup is known as the Bonestorm Witch build, and this skill by itself is a slow clearing ability, but with the right gems, passives and synergies, we can make it 100 times better, and this is exactly what we have right here. This build also has 2 variants, so going full crit chance, what I will personally be doing for myself, or then perhaps go with the detonate a dead variant. Both of these will excel at different things, so which one you choose is up to you. This variant, so the full crit chance setup, excels at huge amount of damage. We won't be focusing on anything else besides the massive crits and stacking as much life as possible, because the more life/defense we have, the more damage we can do in return. Also, at some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the Witch has many tools to address this problem. And with optimized gear, we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or the gear to completely solve this issue. So if you are finally looking for a super fun Blood Mage build that primarily doesn't use the life leech, but instead goes full life and full crit, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Witch, and our ascendancy is the Blood Mage. Then for the first skill we have the Bonestorm, with support gems such as the Brutality, Arcane Tempo, Inevitable Critical and the Super Critical. Then second we got the Bone Cage with the Spell Cascade, Lockdown and the Splinter. Then next we got the Life Remnant with the Vitality, Clarity and the Cannibalism. Then next we have the Combat Frenzy with the Perfusion, Pin and the Potential. And finally for the last one we got the Bone Blast with no support gems. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell and minion damage increase node. Then next we want to keep on going like this until we get to our first stop, which is the potent incantation. Then now keep on going to the right side to get this critical exploit. Then now we circle back a little and keep going like this until we get the sudden escalation. Then now from this point we go down like this, then take the right path and keep going until this point, and then keep going all the way up until the tempered mind. Then next we go down a bit and then take right, which will take us all the way to our first keystone, the resonance. Then from this point we want to circle back again and simply get the last 2 priority nodes called the Power Within and the last 4 Power. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, so you just simply want to fill your attribute requirements for the gear and skill gems, and then after that spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more strength. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Sangumancy, but please don't get it too early. This node is required for every Blood Mage, and this ability does ton of self damage, and it can be quite hard to mitigate this in the early game. So I recommend for you to wait until you complete your second trial, and then take your first and second Ascendancy at the same time. So then after the second trial you want to get the Grasping Wounds. This one will make you significantly tankier and synergize very well with the Sangumancy. So as I said before, get both these Ascendancies at the same time. Then next, take the Gore Spike. This will scale off your maximum life and is a big damage boost. And then finally for the fourth option you want to take the Crimson Power, as this will give you a massive energy shield body armor. And this will also scale really well with our previous Gore Spike. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or the rituals. Our Bonestorm Blood Mage build won't be doing crazy amount of damage against single targets, so we mainly want to do very small farming in boss maps or the essences. So then when we start we want to first of all get this bottom right side like this, then from here go like this until we get all the way to the left side. And then when all of these passives are done, then now we go again to the middle, And now take the middle path and then go a bit to the left again and get all of these nodes. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the attuned wand with the mana drain, and for the extra bonuses we want increased spell damage, plus 3 levels to all physical spell skills, then also increased critical hit chance, and more percentage to critical damage bonus. Next we also have the offhand called the Emblem Crest Shield, with the armor and energy shield. This specific shield is the best job that I got, but it's not required. However, for bonuses we want max life, cold and fire resistance. Remember that our main goal is to stack as much life and resistances as possible, so that's why you will see few stats repeating all over again. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Vicar Tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, cold and fire resistance. Then for the chest we have the Guild Vestments with the armor and energy shield. And for bonus stats we need max life, evasion rating and the fire resistance. Then for the belt we have the Rawhide belt with the increased recovery to the flask, and for the extras we want max life, lightning and chaos resistance. Then for the gloves we got the Torn gloves with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, increased armor and evasion. Then for boots we're using the Bushwhack with the evasion. For this build we will need to get these boots or use the pin gem on our combat frenzy. So which option you prefer, it's up to you. But if you have the pin, then the boots are not required, but still very powerful. So get it or not, but at least go with as high movement speed as possible. Then also get evasion rating and more to dexterity. Then for the first ring get the ruby ring with fire resistance. And for more we want max life, lightning and chaos resistance. While on the second one we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance, and for more get max life, fire or lightning resistance. And finally for the amulet get the solar amulet with more to spirit and max life. No matter which gear you choose, at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. And now finally let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. Our main rotation will be the same, no matter if you choose to go with the full crit or the detonator variant. So for weak enemies we simply want to choose a target, and then just spam the Bonestorm with the Bone Cage. And then for bosses or elites we still do the same thing, just this time also integrate the Bone Blast with the Bonestorm and the Bone Cage, and it's that easy. Most of our buffs will work in the background, which will give us the real damage, so then all you have to do is get used to the mechanics, which are mainly to use the channeling trick, then to be kiting enemies 24/7 and pick up the life remnants. And then from here just spam the Bonestorm and the Bone Cage and have fun. This setup is known as the Lightning Arrow build, which is currently one of the best and fastest setups that you can use to farm maps and other endgame content. Like you can see from the gameplay, we are basically deleting enemies in split seconds. And on top of this, we can also delete bosses, by us having also a very high boss damage by using the Cast on Shock and the Ball Lightning. At some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the Ranger has many tools to address this problem. And with the optimized gear, we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or the gear to completely solve this issue. So if you like using only 2 skills and completely speedrunning through the hundreds of enemies in few seconds, then let's get right into it. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Ranger, and our ascendancy is the Deadeye. Then for the first skill we have the Lightning Arrow, and for our support gems we want to go with the Martial Tempo, Ice Bite, Cold Infusion and Primal Armament. Then second we got the Lightning Rod with the Scatter Shot, Concentrated Effect, Conduction and the Rising Tempest. Next we got the Herald of the Thunder with the Lightning Infusion and the Lightning Penetration. Next we have the Herald of the Ice with Cold Penetration, Magnified Effect and the Elemental Focus. Next we are also using the Wind Dancer with the Blind. Next we have the Orb of Storm with the Chain, Unleash, Overabundance and the Persistence. Then we got the Cast on Shock with the Ball Lightning, Deceleration, Inspiration and the Impetus. And finally for the last one we got the Voltaic Mark with Persistence, Innervate and the Lightning Mastery. Most of this build is structured around using the Lightning Arrow and the Lightning Rod to instantly shot his DPS lightning projectiles, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their area and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, and go like this until we get the Honed Instincts and the Vile Wounds. Then next we want to keep on moving to get this entire thing, and mainly we want to aim for the Master Fletching and disharness the elements. Then from here we want to get back at this point and then keep going down like this, and then when the path splits, then now we want to go to the left bottom. So let's make our way like this, and then finally we want to get both these lightning nodes, so the lightning rod and the flash storm. Then from here we want to circle back and go to the top right side and get the mental toughness and the other mana regen nodes that will help us with the potentially low mana. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock all the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority as they're the most important to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Gathering Winds, then second get the Projectile Proximity specialization with the Point Blank option, then next get the Endless Munition, and then finally we want to select the Wind Ward. And also preferably we want to get 1 mana on kill Jewel, or at least get the mana on kill on the quiver. And next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or the rituals. Also, our Lightning Ranger has a very strong single target damage, so farming boss maps or essences is also a good option. So when we start, we want to first of all get to the bottom left side like this, then now we want to go to the top right side and get all of these passives. And then finally from here you want to go to the top middle part and get the rest of the passives in no particular order. Then next we have our gear, and for this build you only need about 100 spirit. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Dual String Bow. This is the most important item that we have, so look for the highest cold or physical damage bow that you can get your hands on. Also, lightning damage is a good option as well, but for sure you want to avoid fire damage. Generally, I would value additional arrows over a 50 DPS increase, so keep that in mind. And then for bonus stats, we want the bow attacks to fire an additional arrow, then physical damage increase, more lightning damage, or plus extra levels to all projectile skills. Next we also have the offhand called the Primed Quiver, and good stats to look for are the cold or physical damage, increased damage with the bow skills, attack speed, dexterity, projectile speed, level of all projectile skills, and mana on kill. And generally, this is the place where we want at least one source of mana on kill, to reduce our low mana against bosses. Then for the helmet we have the Advanced Scaled Helm with armor and evasion. And for bonus stats we want more armor, more evasion, max life and cold resistance. And it's very important to reach 75% resistance in all 4 stats, so try to get as much of that as possible on your gear. Then for the chest we have the Expert Studded Vest with a lot of evasion. Yes, I chose to sacrifice life for more evasion, and this will give us a lot more utility, especially in the endgame. And then for the extra stats we want max life, more evasion and fire resistance. Then for the belt we have the utility belt that recovers our flask 20% quicker. And then for bonus stats we want more max life, and any other resistances like lightning or chaos. Then for gloves we got the advanced doubled gauntlets with armor and evasion. And for extras we want max life, chaos and fire resistance. Then for boots we are using the advanced embossed boots with evasion. And for more we 100% want to get as high movement speed as possible and also cold resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Thief's Torment. And here I want to give you a huge disclaimer. So if at the start of this build you're struggling with mana, then this one ring can completely solve it, because of the 15 mana gain per each hit, so we will basically never run out of it. But as it is a quite expensive ring, so you can go for other rings as well. This Thief's Torment is only needed for bosses, so usually use different rings for mapping. It's the only source of mana on hit in the game, so without the ring you will instantly run out of mana on the boss. You don't really need it in the lower tier Waystones, but once you get to the top tier, then you will most likely need it. So try to get it before most other players find out about it. And then on the second one we got the Sapphire Ring with cold resistance. And for more bonuses we want max life and chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Stellar Amulet, which gives us more to all attributes. And for extras we want to get more to spirit. Overall for this build I recommend to get 95 intelligence for the ball lightning and the cast on shock. Plus I have a level 11 gem for the ball lightning and also a level 11 for a cast on shock. Of course these gems can be a higher level, but then it will require more intelligence. So getting them to level 11 I found it to work the best. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And as you can see from the gameplay, this is one of the most powerful but easiest and simplest builds in the game. So our main rotation is just to use the lightning arrow and the lightning rod, for easy to kill monsters, which are most of our targets. But then specifically for bosses, you can then place down the Orb of Storms, and spam the lightning rod and cast the volatile mark. This will give you a great buff against the boss and insane amount of shock lightning damage for the single target. On top of this, if you're a new player, then some mechanics may seem a bit weird, so let me quickly explain. If your lightning rod or the cast on shock is not working, then either way try to self-cast the volatile mark, and then place down the Orb of Storms, or perhaps after your volatile mark is out and the Orb of Storms, then only then start spamming the lightning rod. Also, if you're low level and you can't use the cast on shock, then you need to put a skill gem in that skill, or the game itself won't allow you to get the effect. And then finally, if you're low geared and run into a mana problem, especially against bosses, then try to get one Jewel with the mana on kill, or mana on kill from our quiver. For most players, there's no real way to solve mana for bosses, until you get the Thieves' Torment Ring, but using simple strategies may help as well. This might sound obvious, especially at the beginning, when you might not have yet unlocked the mana on kill, but if you run out of mana, then you just simply want to cast less skills and wait. You'll be doing very high damage anyways, so casting few less skills won't really impact the gameplay that much, but it may reduce your mana consumption, especially if you're undergeared or underleveled. This setup is known as the Lightning Storm Monk build, which uses the Acolyte of Chayula Ascendancy to allow you to embrace the darkness by sacrificing spirits. This build will offer a unique playstyle focused on storm damage and the manipulation of the darkness powers. With the strong defensive capabilities of Embrace the Darkness, as well as the Life and Energy Shield Leech, the Acolyte of Chayula will offer a great set of tools for survival, but where the huge drawback usually was in his lack of damage. So I did a lot of hours of testing and now we finally have a build that can easily compete and even outperform the Invoker Monk builds. So if you're ready for this simple enough build that only requires for you to spam 2-3 buttons and then obliterate anyone and everyone that stands in your way, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Monk, and our Ascendancy is the Acolyte of Chayula. Then for the first skill we have the Gathering Storm with the support gems such as the Overcharge, Lightning Exposure and the Coursing Torrent. Then second we got the Siphoning Strike with the Profusion and the Culling Strike. Then next we got the Charge Staff with the Perpetual Charge, Persistence, Withering Touch and the Overpower. Next we have the Tempest Belt with Magnified Effect, Rage and Overabundance. Next we are also using the Tempest Fury with the Close Combat, Crescendo and the Martial Tempo. Next we have the Storm Wave with the Conduction, Lightning Infusion and Primal Armament. Then we got the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Precision. Next we have the Wind Dancer with the Maim and the Blind. And finally for the last one we got the Herald of the Thunder with the Innervate and the Shock Siphon. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node and make our way like this until we get the flow like the water and the essence of the storm. Next up we continue making our way like this and get the crashing wave and the momentum truth. Then next we want to keep going up until this point and then now take the right until we unlock both these nodes. So the exposed to the storm and the wild storm. Then from here we want to get more crit chance, and we mainly can do it in two places. So first we circle back a little and get these two nodes, and then from here again let's go to the top right corner and we want to unlock all of these blue nodes. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game to make our build functional, and in the late game to make it even more powerful. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Walking Dream, then next get the Lucid Dream. Then from here for the third option we get the Reality Rending, and then finally for the last fourth option we want to go with the Chayula's Gift. Some players also prefer to go with the more mana leech instead of the resistance, but that's why in the main tree we spend few points on the mana, so then we could easily utilize our Ascendancy to the max and get the Chayula's Gift. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that will spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as the expeditions or the rituals. Also, our Lightning Monk has a very strong single target damage, so farming boss maps or essences is also a good option. So when we start, we want to first of all get this bottom left side like this, then now we go to the top right side and get all of these passives. And then finally from here you want to go to this top middle part and get the rest of the passives in no particular order. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Slicing Quarterstaff. This is the most important item and you want to acquire a high physical or lightning damage. Overall, most players can choose between 3 options, so go either way with the Expert Crescent, as it is the highest performing one due to the charged staff giving a ton of flat lightning damage. Then next you can also go with the Slicing Quarterstaff, which I've chosen for myself, as it is one of the easier items to get and has the highest DPS per hit. Or then lastly, we can as well get the Gothic Quarterstaff, which has the highest crit rate. All of these options have positives and negatives, so choose whichever one you get first or the specific bonus that you need. And then for more bonuses, we want increased physical damage, more accuracy, increased attack speed and or increased critical hit chance. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with the energy shield. And for more stats we want max life, evasion and chaos resistance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Studded Vest with a lot of evasion. And for bonuses we want even more evasion, max life and cold resistance. Then for belt we have our utility belt that recovers our flask 20% quicker. And for bonus stats we want more max life, 1 charm slot and the fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Gauze Wraps with the evasion and energy shield. And for extras we want max life, max mana and fire resistance. And by the way, if you ever run into the mana problem, then just equip few more mana regen stats, or just cast few less charged staffs until you recover. But our specific build should not be struggling if you use decent enough gear. Then for boots we are using the Expert Frayed Shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we need increased movement speed, more evasion and max life. Then for our first ring we got the Ruby Ring with fire resistance, and for more we want max life and cold resistance. While on the second one we got the Sapphire Ring with cold resistance, and for the extras we want to get lightning resistance and more critical hit chance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Bloodstone Amulet with max life, even more critical hit chance and more percentage to all elemental resistances. And now finally let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So pretty much all monks have proven that by using the charged staff it will give you an insane damage buff that is worth investing into by keeping a high uptime. It's also important to make sure that you're using the Gathering Storm on mob bosses and the pinnacles to apply a shock through its shocked ground and exposure through the lightning exposure. And finally, the last important skill is the Tempest Belt, as he can do his own damage each time it gets hit. And this is the majority of our single target DPS. So the general gameplay of this build is pretty straightforward. And no matter which rotation you're doing, always have the charged staff active pretty much 24/7. And for weak enemies like we have right here, you can simply spam 2 buttons. So the Siphoning Strike for mobility and the Storm Wave for clearing the mob packs. And then second, for single targets we can also use the Tempest Fury with the Tempest Belt, while also using the Gathering Storm to massively debuff the boss. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 most OP builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.